Hi everybody, I'm Dee. I am a naturopath as well as a personal trainer, and I have a really big interest in working with women with endometriosis. The reason for that is that I have endo as well, and so I'm super passionate about helping women with that because of that. Then that crosses over into the perimenopausal space because there also tends to be a lot of women that have a lot of pain or unexplained pain at that time in their life, and they don't really understand where it comes from. And so I have a big passion in helping them with that side of things as well.
There are so many things that we could go into. If you have any questions about endometriosis at all, please feel free to drop them in the comments. So Dee, what are some of the things that you've noticed with clients that are around the age of 45 to 55 that have endo or have had endo in their life?
I find that they think that things will get better because their periods are stopping. However, that's often not the case. I find and I see in them, and the things that they're complaining about is that they have a lot of pain. So joint pain, they're sore from the gym, they don't recover as fast, they get all these niggles and injuries and things that keep coming up that might have been there in the past that start to come up again. And that's the perimenopausal side. But then the other side is that often their endo symptoms tend to get worse too.
So by their endo symptoms, what do you specifically mean?
So because of the fluctuation in the hormones, their periods can be irregular, so they can get more pain, they can get more headaches. I also find that they can get, like, the mood issues can come, that they get more depression, more anxiety, more brain fog. It can actually, things can get worse.
Okay. And so then how would you treat that from a naturopath's perspective? What are some of the things that you would do, like ideally early on? Is it something that if somebody hasn't addressed their endo and they're not addressing it before they get to this age of slightly declining estrogen, what can they do then once they do get to 45 to 55? If they are noticing it getting a little bit worse, what can one do?
I think paying attention to what the body's trying to tell them is a really big thing. I'm a big believer that around that particular time, it's like the body holds a mirror up and says, look what's going on. And so nutrition plays a big part in that from an anti-inflammatory perspective, looking at how many toxins are in the body and in their life. Gut health is important. And the other really, really big one is stress management. So supporting the adrenals and reducing stress and supporting the nervous system.
That list that you've just mentioned is the same list that many naturopaths would say is the list of, what we need to focus on at this age so that the symptoms reduce. Are you saying that it's almost identical to if you've got endometriosis or you don't, it's the same thing?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, there's going to be differences because I don't think that there's a cookie cutter answer for everybody, because it does depend on what their symptoms are from a perimenopausal perspective and whether they have any other conditions or things going on in their life. However, yes, there are huge crossovers in both areas, yeah.
Now, I know this is a public recording at the moment, and I understand that all of you guys that are licensed, you kind of have a noose around your neck in terms of what you can say, because it's not like you're in a client consultation and it's not like you're in a private group where you understand people's medical histories, right? Where you could actually give specific advice. So I understand you're not allowed to give specific advice because of the overarching industry regulatory boards, let's say. That being said, because you can't talk about your clients, let's talk about you. What do you find has happened with your own journey with endo, and what are some of the things that actually help to relieve the symptoms, considering when you get to 45 to 55, the things that relieve it are the same anyway?
The biggest, aside from surgery for me, which wiped the slate clean, as in that it got rid of the active endo lesions, that was the number one thing that made a big difference for me. But then from a management perspective going forwards, eating anti-inflammatory helps. So I avoid gluten, dairy, and Sugar can be a little bit of a trickier one, but definitely avoid gluten and avoid dairy because both of them are inflammatory. And I just noticed that I feel so much better when I don't eat those things.
It's funny because I have this background. I've always found it easier with myself psychologically to put things in rather than say I'm not allowed to have the chocolate or the wine or like whatever it is, because as soon as you can't have something.
Yeah.
So that being said, is there now I know that advice for everybody is different, which is why I'm asking you about your experience. What are the protocols or things that you would go towards if you were just talking to a friend about it, like names of diets, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so you made me remember also, because I'm also part of the fitness industry, I've always tended to be much more leaning towards a high protein diet. And so that's the same. It's so important for women at perimenopausal age, particularly like circling back to that pain perspective as well, is that the drop in collagen can be one of the reasons why that women tend to have a lot of pain issues or the joint issues and things like that too. So having higher protein can actually help with that. So by default, always tend to build my meals with a protein source and then the other things, not like what am I going to eat because I can't eat gluten type of thing. It's always higher protein.
Okay. So what, more keto-like?
Yeah, more keto-like or more. I always find that if you're going to name it, paleo might be a better option because paleo tends to be grain-free as well. So then there's no gluten in it anyway. So if you're looking for recipes and things, paleo can be a good option. However, paleo can be still quite high sugar. So you've just got to be careful with that that side of things.
Thank you for sharing. Me too. And I used to fully recommend that people do that. Across the bat works with every time because you get, artificial things out as well. However, for me, and this is where I want to come down to what you said, anti-inflammatory. The worst thing I think that people can do is just Google the word anti-inflammatory diet. The thing that makes person A inflamed is different, I believe, than the thing that makes person B inflamed.
Yeah.
For a whole gamut of reasons, which are available if you Google them on the internet or ChatGPT. What do you have to say about that when people say just, follow an anti-inflammatory diet? Because now paleo wasn't working for me. However, I have a bit of rice, much better.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to Google anti-inflammatory diet because anti-inflammatory diet can be gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and then if you go that even deeper level, it can be the nightshade vegetables as well. So then that's tomatoes, and it can be very, very restrictive. However, I think that it comes back to listening to what your body does better with. Like, I think we've lost that ability to tune into the signals our body are giving us. And that's why when people say, oh, but why don't you eat gluten or why don't you eat dairy? It's because I've done on and off multiple times throughout the years, and I realize that I feel so much better on it. So there is evidence to say that it will help. At the end of the day, I feel better on it. So that's why I choose to do it. That's the same as you. You feel better. You've worked out what works for you.
Speaking of evidence, though, in the last week, I've had these two different friends that don't know that they're doing it, but they're both sending me reels about fasting.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that for a moment? Because also in the past, I've been a huge fan of that. But as you were talking about, there's plenty of evidence. My goodness. There's evidence, I'm sure, that you actually should be smoking, that you should be doing this, and there's also evidence that you should be doing that. What would you say?
I think it's the same thing. You got to work out what works for you. It can work for some people, but other people, I found that with the women I've treated in clinic and the ones that have done that type of diet when they're from a weight loss perspective, when they're training with me as well, is that it doesn't work for everybody because it can increase cortisol in the body, and that's actually really not a good thing you want to happen when you're in perimenopause at all. Or if you're tired and stressed, I'm personally not a big fan of fasting.
I know you can't make blanket statements, so thank you for even making that one. Yeah, I'm in a non-fasting fan phase at the moment, especially from being on so many diets over the years, because that's our industry, right? Is if I'm tired, I probably need to eat more protein and saturated fats and things to keep the sugar, chocolate, whatever at bay.
And
the ghrelin hormones. Yeah.
So many women undereat protein as it is. So if you're only eating within a small window of a day, like, a small window of time, it's a lot harder to get what you need into that window.
Mm.
And that's protein, but that goes across all the nutrients as well. Like, how do you stack your meals if you're not really eating that much?
Can we talk about, just on the subject of endo again? You mentioned that you had personally had surgery and that made a really big difference for you. I know that there's a lot of questions around that whole topic, actually. What do you find is probably the most common question, and can we dive into that as a topic?
The most common would probably, even maybe not a question, but I think there's the myth that a lot of women believe that if they have a hysterectomy that they're going to get rid of endo, because they associate period pain with periods. So therefore, if you remove the uterus, then therefore you remove the endo. However, endo is a disease outside the uterus, not inside the uterus. So removing the uterus doesn't necessarily help. Yes, it can help because you don't get periods. However, it doesn't stop the endo growing because endo is outside the uterus. Endo also produces its own estrogen, so it feeds itself. So it can help with some women. I'm not saying that it doesn't, and unfortunately can be a last resort for many women. But overall, that's not what's going to help. Excision surgery is a much better option to treat endo.
And would you say it's permanent? Is that a thing that people ask?
I think it depends on who. If you don't, I think if you're earlier on in your journey, you might believe that surgery is going to be the be all and end all of treating it, but unfortunately it's not. It's only part of a management of endo, because it's chronic. You will always have it as well. So to clarify that, you will always have endo, but it may not always be active. I still have endo, but it's not active, so I have no pain. So it can be managed.
What would be some of the other things that people could do to manage it in a plan? And they're your words, not mine.
That's where the diet comes in again. That's where nutrition, some sort of anti-inflammatory diet comes into place. Addressing gut health as well, because that can be a really big driver of pain and inflammation.
With regards to just that fact, gut health, what do you mean? So what are some symptoms, actually? Here's a better way to answer it. What are some symptoms that people will have if their gut health is the problem?
Pain is from an endo perspective, pain and inflammation. If you're having issues with your digestion, if you're having issues with your bowel movements, if you're having mood issues, skin issues, they can all relate back to the gut. But specifically from an endo perspective, if you have poor gut health, so what that can mean is that there's an imbalance of your gut microbiome, so good versus bad. That is one reason why it will also drive inflammation. And then the other thing is that if you have leaky gut or intestinal permeability, that means that the body essentially produces more inflammation or an immune response in the body. And so that's where it drives back to the increase in inflammation.
So are you talking about the basic version of leaky gut being when somebody eats food, instead of the stomach acid doing its job, instead of, we presume there's enough stomach acid for it to do its job, then the lining of the stomach has weaknesses or holes, so does stomach acid, and then so the food starts going through the stomach lining into the bloodstream. And that's not where it's meant to be digested from. So leaky gut.
Yes.
I know we can Google what leaky gut is, but we can also listen to some really complicated content on that. But to keep it as simple as possible, digestion meaning like food and the entire tract, making sure it's happy. And obviously there's different signals for each section.
Yes.
Interesting. So you're saying you get more inflamed if you've got leaky gut because the food's going through. So what would be some ways to help remedy, or I'm hesitating on saying the word fix, but you know what I mean?
They're the naturopath answers. They're the ones you should see a naturopath about.
For example, I know that like one of the things that I say, and it's actually on that free handout, is chew your food, because when you chew your food,
yes,
it helps to stimulate stomach acid ready to digest the food. So is that not something that you would recommend as well?
Yeah, yes, but there's so many other things as well. Yes. Yes. Nutrition is always number one. Nutrition is always number one. Reduce the information that you're actually putting in your body to start with.
Interesting. Anything else that you want to say on the topic of endo?
Women don't suffer. You don't have to suffer. There are many, many options. So keep advocating for yourself. It can be a bit of a minefield out there on the internet because there's a lot of misinformation, and unfortunately it's not very well understood, and it's only just now starting to get a lot more research towards it. So yeah, keep advocating for yourself.
Are you happy to share a little bit about your own story there? Because I remember you telling me once about that story of finding a surgeon that could actually help. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So I originally saw a regular gyno who said to me, yes, you can book in for surgery. You'll know when you're ready. And then originally I didn't go down the surgery route. And then things just got worse and worse and worse. And then I learnt much more about the disease as well, and then decided to go down the route of seeing an excision specialist, because there's a big difference between a regular gyno or an obstetrician and a excision specialist. Excision specialists have done more research, and they often only do that type of surgery. So if you see an obstetrician, they're delivering babies a lot of the time. They're not necessarily doing a lot of endo surgeries. So when they go in to look for look for the endo, they may not be as specialized because they haven't had as many hours and as much experience in looking for it. So the most important thing is to see an excision specialist, and that's what I ended up doing, and why my surgery was such a success in the long term.
Oh, interesting. And so, are you happy for people to type questions where they're watching this recording or listening to it? If they've got questions to ask you, awesome.
Yes.
And feel free to ask us any questions, whether you're just going through endo, have been through, or you've got something to share, or you're between 45 and 55 and you're noticing potentially that your symptoms are getting worse. Feel free to, ask a question. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.